Hey guys, Gaming here with a new series on my Efficiency 5 gaming series channel, and this series is actually about redstone. And it's not just some redstone contraption. As I said, it is a series, and this series is Redstone Mastery. And it's basically a series that I will go through, teach you most of the stuff I know about redstone, and like what it is and everything, and how to understand it better. Because I've seen a lot of tutorials where it doesn't really make sense, you know what I'm saying? And so, first thing you're going to want to do is just build a super flat world to test things on, if you want to go along with this video. But you don't have to do that. You can always just try and understand this in your own knowledge. But I would recommend, while watching this video, you pause, play it, and you kind of play along in your Minecraft, but it isn't necessary. So let's go into it. Okay, so I just spawned in. Apparently I spawned in a village, which is cool. So I guess we'll use this place as our little testing grounds. I didn't originally intend to make this a actual village. I wanted no village, but this works, sure. So one thing you're gonna want to know about— wow, there's 2 blacksmiths in this place. One thing you're going to want to know about this series is I will not be going into command blocks. If you know what that is, then you should probably, and you're looking for that, really shouldn't look at this for command block commands and knowledge. This is going to be more of how to set up redstone in survival, although that can still be useful with command blocks. And so I'm going to just be doing some of that. I may do a different series about command blocks and commands if you guys want that. Let me know by leaving a comment down below. But yeah, let's jump right into it. So the first half of this video, I'm going to be explaining redstone ore, abilities of pressure plates, tripwires, all that good stuff, and not really go into anything too major. This is a very short first section, but if you already know the basics about redstone, like what it does, and you're looking to go into more advanced stuff, then you're just going to want to skip the first half and jump to the second half. The second half is the redstone lamp on the side. But if you just start out in Minecraft and you really want to start from the basics in redstone, just wait until the end of this clip. So you decided to go with the very fundamentals of redstone. I'm going to be talking about triggers here, what powers redstone, and what it actually is. And so, if you're in a survival world, you've probably gone around mining a little bit, and you found this fancy redstone ore that when you mine it, it drops tons of this stuff, this redstone. And so, that's pretty cool, but you're wondering, what is it for? What does it do? Well, basically, there are a bunch of triggers in Minecraft that activate this redstone that you have. Maybe you've noticed that so far in your survival world, maybe you haven't. If you're following along in creative, one thing you might want to notice is this redstone tab up here, which has all the items that correspond with anything redstone. So basically, all these triggers I have here, we've got tripwire hooks, pressure plates, 4 different kinds. These 2 are fancy. Buttons, 2 different kinds. A lever, a redstone torch, and a redstone block. And I'm going to go through and explain all of them. The first one we're going to talk about is the tripwire hook. Starting out, you got a tripwire hook, which is made like this, as you can see by the recipe on the screen. It's pretty simple, and all you need is to set up 2 of them, which you get from one craft, and put a string in between. It does not need to be 1 string, because you can expand the distance of tripwire hooks much longer. And as you see, putting 1 string in the middle does nothing. You have to put it all the way across through them. And so basically, what tripwire hooks do is when they get walked through with their string in the center, it triggers the redstone touching the block they are on. No matter where it's at, top, bottom, sides, it will always get powered. If I put one down there and I snake it up here, you can see, oh whoops, that must be too far down. Yep. If I go like that, trigger it, as you can see, everything gets powered. If I replace this, that all gets powered. Everything gets powered, even on the sides. And I would say in front of it, although there's string there, so you can't really do that. Below it, yep, anything touching the tripwire hook does get powered. Apparently it's turning night. So everything does get powered on both sides no matter what. So that's the tripwire hook. It's pretty simple. It's pretty easy to craft and can be used for a lot of cool stuff like automatic doors, but we can get into that later. Alright, the next thing we're going to be talking about is pressure plates. There are 4 different kinds of pressure plates. There's the weighted pressure plate light, weighted pressure plate heavy, weighted wooden pressure plate, and stone pressure plate. These all have different properties, but the basics of them are they all power redstone. I'll deal with these two. I'll go into a little bit later. Don't power it as strong when you step on it. So we'll start out with these 2 basic wooden and stone pressure plates. If we come over here, the recipe is pretty simple. As you can see on your screen, you just use 2 of either wood or stone. It has to be stone, not cobblestone. People always get that confused. So basically, pressure plates, they do 2 things. Well, 1 thing. Just like all the other blocks, they power redstone in this ring around it. As you can see, this one will power all that, and this one will power all of that. Even if I go up a block, there we go. Place all these. As you can see, they kind of connect to it, and they all get triggered, and it's the same no matter where you're at. The stone pressure plate is the exact same way. It does exactly what the wooden pressure plate does. The question is, why wouldn't you just make a wooden pressure plate if it's the same exact as a stone? Well, the properties of a stone are a little bit different. Here we've got a wooden pressure plate, and then we'll make the same exact setup right here with a stone pressure plate. What I mean by the setup being a little bit different, is that what triggers it is different. If I come over here and I drop a piece of redstone, any block works. Remember this, don't think you have to do only redstone. You can see that the redstone gets triggered, but if I use it with a wooden one, a stone one, nothing happens. I can use any block, I can even use a stone pressure plate, and it'll get triggered. Come over here, nothing happens. The person has to step on, a player has to step on a pressure plate in order for it to activate. If I go ahead and get a spawn egg, and we spawn any mob in, it will trigger the pressure plate, and it'll trigger either one. It doesn't matter what pressure plate it uses, it's just, it has to be a living entity in order for it to do that. If I get a cow, pardon me, and I put it on, it triggers. Even on wooden pressure plate, it triggers. That's one thing a lot of people forget. They think that wooden pressure plates are the only ones that can be triggered by animals and mobs, but it's not true. Both of them can be triggered by mobs. But one thing that's a little interesting that not many people pay attention to is that with a bow and arrow, if you shoot it at a wooden pressure plate, it'll trigger. If I get away and don't pick it up. But if you try and do the same thing with a stone pressure plate, nothing happens. So that's a little cool thing that you can remember. And so those are the 2 basic default pressure plates. Not too different, but, you know, stone pressure plate, not triggered by items or arrows. Wooden pressure plate is, so keep that in mind. So yeah, let's go on to the next 2 types. Okay, so iron and gold pressure plates. A lot like wooden and stone. Crafting recipe is basically the same, as you can see. It just uses good old-fashioned gold ingots and iron ingots. It finally gives you some use for your overwhelming amounts of gold that you may have collected over time. But basically what it does is, like the wooden pressure plate, either is activated by blocks being dropped on it. As you can see, off, on. It's a little hard to tell with these because they are a little fancy. I said that earlier, and what I meant by that is that these weighted pressure plates, as you can see at the bottom, they're called weighted pressure plate heavy and weighted pressure plate light, are triggered by more entities. Entities are blocks dropped, people standing on it, mobs on it, stuff like that. So basically what you have is, with the gold pressure plate, every extra block that is on top of, let me see here. There we go, I think. One second. There we go. Every extra block that is on top of a golden pressure plate adds another signal strength. So if you look here, at one block, it only powers that one. That one's not on at all. Put another one on, and that one still not on. Weird. It should be activated. There's two. Oh, I see the problem. Okay, so this is a small glitch, I guess, that's in the system. Maybe if I put them all down at once, because with gold pressure plates, every one you add, it should add another signal strength. But as you can see, it's only giving me that one powered. And I believe it is due to, as you can see, if I get a bunch of items and I drop them, it only shows up as one stack. So if I put on different items, you can see the signal strength begins to grow. See how it's grown all the way to right here? Because I have 6 items. And so that's basically what it is used for. It's used to detect how many items. Maybe you have a little donation system here, and people just throw different items in, and it just detects when to clear them, and it puts off a redstone signal. And so that's the thing about that pressure plate. But with this iron pressure plate, as I think it is bugged, and you need, yeah, this is going to be very, very hard to demonstrate, so I'm going to just talk about it. Iron pressure plates require 10 times the amount of blocks a gold pressure plate cost. So in order to get a signal strength of 1, you need 1 through 10 entities. But to get a signal strength of 2, you need 11 through 20. And then for signal strength of 3, you need 21 through 30. 4, 31 through 40, so on and so forth. And so that can get very demanding, as you cannot just have the same block. So in order to fully power it, you would need 141 different blocks or more. And so these are the 2 weighted pressure plates. Not many uses that people use them for that I've seen in practical use, but we're going to use them later on in this series, and you'll see what for. Next, we have buttons. The buttons aren't too different. Click either of them, and they will activate blocks around them, in front of them, next to them. Really doesn't matter. They will just activate everything. A little bit like the wooden pressure plates and wooden and stone pressure plate, though. The wooden gets triggered by things other than a click. Mobs cannot trigger either of them, and you can't really drop items onto pressure plates, buttons. So you can see it doesn't really work. So really the only use at this time is a bow and an arrow. Whoops. Bow. Arrow. As you can see, if I shoot a bow and arrow at this wooden button, it triggers the redstone behind it. But if I do the same thing with the stone, nothing happens. Even if I'm like clearly on top of it, doesn't work. And so that's basically the only difference between buttons. Pretty simple. Real quick, I forgot to show the recipes for stone and wooden buttons. They're just 1 block of either kind, and it's pretty simple. And so yeah, sorry about that. And also forgot to show the recipe for the lever. It's also really simple. It's a stone with a stick on top of it. Pretty easy to make and pretty useful. Yeah. Next thing we have here is the, what's it called? Redstone torch. Redstone torch is a lot like a lever when it's fully triggered. Oh, whoopsie daisy. Didn't mean to do that. Let's undo that. it has some weird properties, as you saw there, how it was flashing on, off, all this weird stuff. One thing you gotta know, though, is it does not power whatever block it is on. So if it's on the top, it will not power the block under it, or to the sides. Any redstone that you want triggered by a redstone torch has to be directly touching the redstone torch. Just like that. If this was down one, whoops, and these weren't there, it does not get powered at all. That is one thing you gotta remember about redstone torches. They constantly have a single signal though, so you never ever have to turn them on. So that'll go on forever. And so yeah, the next block we have is the first actual block. It is called the redstone block. Oh yeah. The redstone block is almost exactly like the redstone torch, as it powers anything touching it. Just like this. And even under it, but it does not power any blocks behind it or through another block. Which is a little strange. But, yeah, it's pretty simple, a lot like the redstone torch. Yeah, it constantly has the output as well, just like the redstone torch. Will never turn off. Okay, so this is the more advanced section of the redstone part. Although it's really not going to do anything, we're not going to learn anything on this episode 0. This is merely teaching you one of the terms I'm going to use in my the rest of the series. And so before you leave this video going, I don't need to know this stuff, I already know redstone, I just want contraptions. Well, this is the term I'm going to be using in a lot of my videos. And so this is pretty important. And it's about first-hand and second-hand power. As you can see, there's all these different kinds of light green wool and red wool sparsed around. And those are first-hand and second-hand powers. I believe it is impossible to get actual first-hand power in survival Minecraft, because of the fact that all these things need to be triggered. All these triggers that if you're in the advanced or you watched the earlier part of the video, you already know about. But basically what first-hand and second-hand power is. First-hand power is whatever this block is, the direct block it's powering. That is first-hand power. And that does not mean, though... What the heck? No idea why that triggered. That does not mean that this... What? One second. That was weird. That does not mean that that is first-hand power. That is second-hand power there. Because basically what first-hand power is... There we go. As you can see, that does not get triggered. But that does. First-hand power is the direct block that it is touching. And so even the actual tripwire or any of these, the first-hand power is not on top. It is the direct block it's touching. Meaning, if I tried to put redstone there in order to get the first-hand power, you cannot have a tripwire hook on top of redstone. And so first-hand power goes two ways. When you power something, like a pressure plate, this is not, well, it won't work with pressure plate, because, as I explained earlier, pressure plates power below. As you can see here, when I trigger that, both these get triggered, but you can't tell this is going on. You can't tell that that has, you can see that that has a redstone current, but you can't tell that does. But when I trigger this, the first-hand power is in this block. And if I get my button back, that's first-hand, this is second-hand power. Right here. And so now, any redstone won't go any further from second-hand power. In order to get a redstone current, you have to have direct first-hand power. It's a little confusing at first, but it works in a pretty simple way. Any power I'm getting from this pressure plate, it can come through here, but this is all second-hand power. The first-hand power is only the block, the pressure plate is on. As you can see, all this stuff is getting triggered, but that won't get triggered. So if I put something here, that'll get triggered. And even if I put it below it, because all these are touching this green wool, this first-hand power. And it's the same with all this. Putting something there gets triggered. And with the lever, it's the same thing, except it treats the lever as first-hand power. So if you could get something above the lever, then it would trigger that. But in order to show that, as you can't put redstone on top of a lever, you can demonstrate it like this. As you can see, it shoots right out, and the same thing with this. So a button will trigger any block around it, and it'll only go to there. It will not trigger 2 blocks, as again, whatever block it is on is where it's going to give its first-hand power. It's pretty simple. With redstone blocks and redstone torches, though, one second. With those two, sorry about that, with those 2 blocks, they are their own first-hand power, so they do not trigger any green wool. As you can see, if I put a dust here, it works. But if I put it through a block, nothing happens. And so that's first-hand, second-hand power. Advanced section's really short, but just try and understand this. You might have to watch it a couple times. But I'm going to be using this in the rest of the series, and yeah, hope you guys enjoy.